design or biosciences or something. But in those cases, protect your IP with patents.
Right. But for you,
Why would you protect code?
For computer, like I think there's a big case like somebody that said about the Chinese company steal the code from Cisco, right? So that's why they can make something almost identical as a Cisco routers. So there's a big like investigation on that. So basically, the contractor can access your code, right?
Yeah.
They could take your code and then at least make a Me Too kind of thing, and then maybe have very few modifications. And then
I think that's true. I think as a designer, you have to trade off the cost. I think if you're building something that's very, very easy to reproduce, is obvious and differentially competitive, and can be your idea can be copied and applied in other markets, like the example of China or something, easily. You should take that into consideration.
Yeah, like Groupon. If I have a Groupon source code, I mean, I can just do something, not me. There's so many specific Groupons.
But Groupon is an example of a substantially network effects driven business. Groupon in China will have locality, so it'll be possible. Groupon I think of as a lot like eBay. In those conditions, you're going to have one winner in each country, and then you're going to ultimately have to.
Well, at least the people don't have to build the system themselves. Yeah, Groupon, big part of it is offline business, right? They can make deals with individual vendors, but at least they don't have to build their software, right?
You can just take
part
it
of
and set it up. Yeah, and you're right. And outside of I always think there's some countries where copyright laws, say in the United States, don't apply. But those countries are less nowadays. I mean, China in some cases is one. But there's other countries where copyright laws do apply across borders, and in that case, you can't just take my software and just make a copy and run it on your servers. If you're doing that in Europe, it's not going to work. So I think that, but you make a good point. I think there are cases where you want to be. I agree. I think there are cases where you want to be careful.
Or maybe you can use like the core piece you don't open, but the peripherals, like all the connections you can open up.
Maybe.
Yeah. Exactly. So the core engine. So you can. I tell the API how to talk to my core piece, but you just build the bells and whistles for me. Then that probably is less.
And our design doesn't force you to, for example, our work list doesn't force you to always just have the code in the open. It's just that practically speaking, if you have a lot of different people working on little parts of it, they're going to get to the code pretty quickly.
I just want to say thank you, and we have to go. So goodbye. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Right.
Huh? I am. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
With that,
I'm going to ask you about the social aspect of being part of a team and company.
Thanks for being on.
So I've always valued being part of a team, working with other people. I mean, you feed off of energy when you come into a building and sit together. There's a lot to be said about that.
I think there's a lot to be said about that.
What happens?
So we have an office in San Francisco now. This is another one of our crazy ideas. We didn't really have to talk about it. We're opening a co-working space in San Francisco that's actually a kind of a combination of an office and a cafe that's open to everybody. So we have a bunch of interesting ideas there.
That's actually what I was going to ask about, if you have anything else to tell about. I saw the interview you did with Kevin Rose.
Yes, that's in the Work Club, which is the thing we're opening.
When are you guys opening that up?
Next few weeks, we're going to have we're going to probably have an opening event next month.
Okay, is it something that anyone can go? I didn't quite get it. Can anyone just walk in?
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to figure it out ourselves, but the idea is you can definitely just walk in, especially if you're a developer, designer, or whatever. And our idea is we'll provide space for you. We'll have you there. We'll make your coffee. You don't have to pay for it. And the hope is that we can figure out a way to get people doing work with each other within the confines of that space, the cafe, the club, in a way that helps us pay the bills on it. And I bet we can come up with a way to do that. We've been thinking about how to do it. It seems like it makes sense, right? I mean, why do it by selling you coffee? I mean that's cool. Coffee's not bad, but
have you heard of Hacker Dojo?
I have. I haven't been there yet, but I'd like to.
That's right. Like you pay a membership fee, then you can use the space.
Yeah, but
there's another one. There's another one in the South of Market in San Francisco. That's I can't remember the name. The Summit, right? Citizen Space. I think maybe that's the one that's more hackery. And then the Summit is great. Yeah. But the Summit doesn't let anybody in because the Summit Cafe does. Summit Cafe does, but the attached IO Ventures. One of the things I wanted to do is actually build something that's in between Summit as a cafe where you buy coffee and IO Ventures, which is great too. IO Ventures is a thing where you've got to be invested in by the owners of IO Ventures for you to have a desk there. My thought was kind of like, isn't there somewhere in between?
Yeah, totally.
Where you don't have to pay the coffee, you kind of come there every day, we know you, but we also didn't have to invest in you didn't have to give us stock, we didn't have to give you $25,000 or whatever in your new idea.
But there's some accelerator, something going on there.
Yeah, there's something where...
Cafes, accelerators.
Well, and the other thing is, I think there's a real benefit in getting people with different competencies in the room so that you can use a little bit of their time. Like if you've got one person who's a crack, iPhone, native controls type of person, do you really need to employ one of those people full time? I mean, wouldn't it be more fun for you and for him or her if they just were sitting in this cafe and you could just walk over and be like, hey, we're ready to do the build of this, and can you just set that up for me? And why wouldn't that work better as a company model? And I think that it can.
And the idea that you talked about in the interview was that there would be like an LCD screen that showed everyone who was there.
It's already up.
Or not. Yeah,
I don't have a picture of it on my phone, but
see, like,
I can show you the webpage.
So what's the name of this place? Like, how would I find it when it opens?
The name of the place is called, right now it's called Work Club. It actually has a big sign outside. It's at 1825 Market in San Francisco, which is at right near Market and Guerrero. It's in the block right near where the freeway on-ramp is.
Right.
Super, super cool neighborhood. Everybody, again, I'd be delighted if you're in the city. If you want to come by, it'd be great. We're still putting the furniture in and stuff, so it's not like officially open yet, but the door's open, and I'd love to have you come and try it out.
I've got to run. So I am very interested in using your platform to build some software.
Great.
And I would love to come talk to you about
Great.
it.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Awesome.
We're
I'll
early
send you an
stage,
email.
and
Yep.
we'd love to connect.
Yep. That's great.
I love it. I've done things that rhyme with what you're doing in other circles, and keep it in the open.
Great.
It sounds really
Great.
productive as well as fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thanks. Good to meet you. Yep.
Can I ask you what it doesn't work for? Like what, besides like the IP risk and all that stuff, what kind of, like, from an engineering perspective, what doesn't it work for?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that if you were doing something that really did... off the top of my head, I don't really know. I mean, it's worked for everything we've used it for thus far, but I really don't want to say that it'll work for everything. I don't want to be the bold, all your companies will be shut down soon. I mean, I don't think that's
Would you build
necessary.
all of Second Life like this?
Yeah, I would definitely build. If I was building Second Life again today, I would use the system for sure. I think it'd be great.
So complex systems.
Yeah. However, I bet that along the way we will come up with management strategies or motivational techniques or ways of paying or reviewing each other that we haven't yet designed. I bet that's true. Like if you look at what we're doing now, I think you'll say, wow, this is version 1.0 of a different way of doing work, and there's going to be multiple versions. So I don't claim that we've solved every problem with, like how do you decide whether you're going to pick up a contract from one of the 100 developers that's done work with us? That's an open-ended question. Very interesting. What's the right balance? What do you want to know? Is it like Yelp? When I see these reviews, I've worked with Philip. He is this and this. Maybe. But maybe there's a different system. Like we built this bonus system, which is one of our experiments right now, where I can anonymously, I can show this to you, it's really cool, we're recording, but we anonymously you can anonymously give a bonus to a developer, and then you can see in their user profile, you can do this with our team right now, you can literally see how many dollars of these anonymously given tips or bonuses they've received from others, and what percentage of the amount of total work and fees that they've billed that bonus represents. I mean, right? That's quite interesting, right? Because now you're being given that anonymously by someone that you worked for, basically, on a job. I don't know. And so I find that an interesting. They don't know. So there are 4 or 5 of us now. So the other thing we can do is we can delegate budget. So let's say you're a product manager type of a person, designer. Another thing that sometimes happens with us is you might come into our system and I might say, hey, do you want to run this whole settings and login process for me on this? I'll give you $5,000 to spend in contracts in here. So even though we're one company right now building the software, there's a lot of different projects and a lot of people, so it's already enough for it to be reasonably anonymous. Like there are ways to get that. But you're right, like right now, you could still probably trace it back to my partner and I, but once we start bringing other projects in, right, then you wouldn't know.
You control all the bigger pieces, not the
Yeah,
small
so
pieces.
if you're contracting and you're working on, 3 or 4 different projects in our system, and you get a bonus, you won't know who it was from. I mean, maybe you will. You might have a feeling, but.
I think so. You know which project you work at, which project you know what project.
Yeah, because we have a pool distribution mechanism where we've got the money and we give out the money from a central account, so it allows us to do that experiment. We can basically say, it makes you more honest. It's like the problem of tipping in a restaurant. It's the problem of tipping in a restaurant. I always think of it socially as that. We've all had bad service in a restaurant. How many times have you not given a tip to the person? Actually, in every room there's somebody who's always like, I'm totally fair. I'll give you absolutely nothing, look you right in the eye, and say, I hope you do better next time. That's a minority of people, though. That's a very tense social interaction, to do that. So I always love the idea of, what if in a restaurant, when I walked in, the waiter or waitress could see what the average amount of tips I give is, like floating from my head, and I could see what the average amount they get is. Wouldn't that drive an interesting interaction? But that would require that anonymity, because the percentage would only be interesting and accurate if they didn't know what you were going to get them. So I don't know how to exactly solve that problem, but we're doing experiments like those because we're trying to feel. Probably the best way to review people is with text. But we're also looking at, mechanisms for trying to do this.
How is it possible to use the system for, let's say, my
You just email me.
So you have a system we can use?
Yeah, I don't have a card, but I'm easy to find through Syrupes Code.
So you have a system other people can use?
Our system right now is, for those who care, I'll show you. Just show you what it looks like. You get a feel for the.
Now I have a
screen
contract
here.
company, outsourced company in China doing my different work. So maybe I can do this.
Yeah. So you still have to email me to get a new project in here, because we're still kind of in the alpha stage here.
Okay.
So you actually have to ask me, and I have to set this up for you. And you actually have to, if you're paying people through it, you have to kind of manually give us some money, and then we put it into our system, and you can pay people through it. But it's not quite yet like Elance, but it's very easy. I mean, and I'm very motivated to do this for people. So you'll get good turnaround. You'll get good performance from me. These are a bunch of project names. These are a bunch of things that are waiting for bids right now. Okay. So, but let me log in and I'll show you this. I'm gonna log in here. But this is so.
Get selected on a bid is not automatic. You can bid, but even if you underbid everyone, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It's still sort of the project manager or whoever's running the show gets you. Okay. And then when you are registering as a developer, do you put in like your resume? How do people know, or do you put in? How do you evaluate somebody if you haven't worked with them?
When you put in a bid, first of all, when you put in a bid, we ask you to describe what you're going to do. In other words, we kind of have you play back to us what your strategy is. A lot of times that's quite helpful. But I can just show you this. I can show you some really awesome stuff here. So this is my console. So now I'm logged in. These are my jobs that I'm doing right now. So literally, let's see. Well, here's an example. Worklist momentarily shows status selection box. Watch this. This is a bug on this page. Watch right there. This is classic bad code, right? Ah! Did you see that? There's a pop-up. But what is that? It's some leftover. I know what it is. We changed one control to that. So I put a little thing here that says, I want to fix that. Bug. Worklist momentarily shows status. So I just clicked on this. I'm the runner, which means I'm the manager on this project. I'm going to be paying this out. So, first of all, I describe with notes what I want done here. When reloading the Worklist homepage, blah, 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 show status control, fix this. This is obviously a really trivial project. I charge the company $10. I pay myself the same way. I charge the company $10 just for entering this. In other words, if this gets done, and this works readily, so like if you come in and enter bugs on our system, and I pick it up and say, okay, let's do that, and I open it for bidding, you'll actually get paid when the job is done just for identifying the bug. So people can just talk. So these are, comments from other developers talking to each other. So here's the bids. So somebody named Vincent bid $20 and said, I'll have it done in 1 day. I'll fix that. I'm going to accept this bid, I'll tell you right now, because I know who the guy is. That means he set a little time clock saying when he's